Thank you for joining us for the latest in our ClearlySo sector insights. I'm here with Chris Parsons, who not only heads our enterprise business, but also looks after the education and training sector. Thank you for joining us, Chris.
Thank you, Theresa. Yes, thank you for the kind intro. Yes, just to add to that, so I run the enterprise team here. So that's the team that really helps companies who are high impact and commercially scalable on raising capital anywhere from £500,000 up to over £20 million plus. But I also lead, I guess, to the topic of our conversation today, our work in the education and training sector. Yeah, I've been at ClearlySo probably nearly 3 years now. Time has flown and we've evolved a lot as a business in that time. And certainly the education and training market is very mainstream and very topical right now as a result of COVID. I'm happy to share more thoughts around that.
That's great. The focus today definitely is around your sector and how it's been coping during all of this in the last few months. But what would you say would be the big changes you've seen in your sector during lockdown?
I think that one client put it in a very neat way. What COVID has done is make 5 years worth of change happen in 6 months. So it's shifted very, very quickly. Companies made them shift rather to a much more digital based model. Now, many of those who already had that model already actually doing well, very well in a kind of COVID environment, whether through remote teaching, home learning, online safety. They're actually very well suited to meet both school needs, parent needs, children needs in this world. I think others which have perhaps been more enterprise focused and more direct selling to schools have struggled for obvious reasons. We all hope, especially as a parent myself, that children go back to school in September time, but that uncertainty around school, physical school starting, the kind of change to exams and how they're done has probably affected more those companies which are more direct selling to schools. Equally, B2C models, so ones which thrive more on selling directly to parents and also to teachers working from home, have done very well. But I think a real trend there we've seen is many kind of switching to freemium models. So very much trying to offer free content to users to attract them and with the hope of converting them later in the year once traction kind of builds. I think from the investor side, I know we'll touch more on this in due course, but I think from institution side, I think investors have been more comfortable working with kind of B2B or B2B2C models in the education space. So companies which work with large partners or sell directly to large organizations, whether in education or training, but also have a real differentiation and a real sort of personalized service. Interestingly, we just closed a small deal which involved angel investors called Ethical Angel. It's a company which kind of connects employees and companies who want to improve their training with charities. So both sides work, charities get access to professional skills, and employees feel they're actually benefiting and learning real practical skills by helping charities themselves. I raised that because actually we saw that many angels were pausing investment for now, whilst they're kind of seeing what happened with the environment and also I think try to improve the liquidity of their portfolios. I think that's changing a bit now, but certainly a month or two ago, we were finding angel investors more cautious perhaps than we expected.
That's really interesting insight. And I think that across all of the sector interviews, we certainly have seen that the acceleration and adoption is kind of the common theme across sectors. So that's good to hear that it's the same for yourself. When you're working with enterprises, as you've mentioned, what advice have you given the most in the last few weeks as you've been working with them?
Well, if I extend the question perhaps the last couple of months, if that's all right, and slightly cheat the answer. And this may sound perverse, because actually when companies approached us, say in April, May, June, and wanted to raise money, we said don't. Unless they were very strong, really doing well in the kind of COVID environment, had a long cash runway, we actually encouraged them to wait, not to raise money, because many investors were pulling their horns in, were not investing, or when they were investing, were actually being very, very critical and scathing and almost very negative in their mindset. Again, that's changed over the last few weeks and months. But certainly early on during COVID, our advice was to companies, don't try and raise money from new investors. If things are a bit tight, just try and do a top-up round, with your existing investor, bridging around to give you a bit more of a runway. But our main advice was not to raise or not try to go to third-party new investors. What we did suggest was worth doing is doing a bit of market sounding. And that's where we do a lot of work for clients like that at ClearlySo. So that's where we don't do a formal capital raise, but we know our investor network very well, and we'll take a company we think is very appealing, may want to raise money later in the year, and just sound out that company, its kind of key highlights, its attractions with its investors, share that feedback with the client, and use that then to help them raise from a position of strength later in the year. I think advice linked to that obviously is, having as long a cash runway as possible is helpful. And also companies which perhaps be more B2C focused, as I mentioned earlier, where they got lots of usage and lots of take up of their product, perhaps they haven't yet seen the conversion, really waiting to see that conversion come through over the next kind of later in the year, so they can actually show to investors they are monetizing our content, monetizing our usage, and actually are well placed to raise money.
It's very interesting as you talk about working with different enterprises in this way. So you're taking their product out to investors, showing what's possible. So if you do the flip side of that, so let's say you're an investor, if you're looking at these companies, what would you be most excited about that you're seeing?
Well, I think very simply it's a buyer's market, which I know sounds a bit crude, but actually investors can choose. They can be more discerning and perhaps tougher on terms or what they want to choose, because there's such a plethora of companies out there trying to raise money. But also what we've seen in this education and training sector is there's a plethora of very inventive companies who are developing some amazing solutions, both from an impact and commercial point of view, that actually will do very well in the future. And so there's a plethora of choices. The hard one actually is almost too much to choose from. So I think what investors look for, they really are being more discerning and really looking to understand a company's differentiation. What makes it so special against its kind of peers? How is it really going to scale? How have management coped in the last kind of 3 months, 6 months? Have they got a track record of kind of not getting through just this crisis, but perhaps earlier crises before? Are they a very durable team? I know people always say, or investors always say, it's the people that come first, but that's even more true now. I'm just showing they really have managed and kind of coped well in the last few months, and as hopefully things start to ease a bit more, are well placed to really help the company flourish. But also I'd say from what we do, and especially in this education and training sector, the social impact that the company achieve is actually really, really important, because you can see all the problems in the mainstream market from parents, from schools, from ministers. So companies that really are providing a solution that meets these needs, helps to reduce the stress for teachers, helps get children back into school, helps teachers work more effectively from home and teach from there, helps parents better understand how teachers are performing, provides safe online platforms where content is vetted, provides positive screen time. All these things are even more true now. I think if you're an investor, you can see those trends. They aren't going to go away for a while. If you see companies that have found a really clever way of solving those solutions in a very robust commercial way, it's very appealing.
I can imagine, and I like the idea of a buyer's market because it's quite encouraging for investors. In the companies that you're looking at and working with at the moment, what are some of the common winning characteristics that you see?
So I think probably more investors are keener on B2B models. So what they look for there is high subscription revenue, which often is a kind of recurring nature for 2 or 3 years. So having a high basis of recurring revenue, subscription SaaS-based models kind of gives visibility of earnings over the next kind of couple of years with high renewal rates. That's very appealing. We're working with one client right now which is displaying this very much and is very in a strong position with many investors right now. I think also, to my earlier point, differentiation. As a result of COVID and lots of companies going out there with lots of new inventive technology or platforms, there's a lot of noise out there. So if you're a parent, again, speaking as a parent from home, you're trying to work out what's the best solution out there to help my children improve their maths or improve their soft skills, be more creative. There's a plethora of choice out there. So if you're a company, being able to really show differentiation, how you are better than what else is out there, how you've got track record, validation, I think it's critical to stand out from the crowd. I think the more financial side, cash runway, so being able to show you can survive definitely at very least 6 months, maybe 9 or 12 months. And lastly and not least, I think flexibility on valuation. So no company wants to undersell what it's worth. But any entrepreneur has to recognize these are very challenging times, and with no disrespect to a company's model or strengths, investors are pulling back their horns a bit on valuations generally, and they'll probe much harder. So I think some flexibility and realism around valuation is important for clients, but backed up by still their firm belief in the success of their business, how much it's worth, and just taking their time before they approach investors to really prepare, stress test what they are producing in terms of forecasts. So when they have that discussion with investors around valuation and talk about terms, an investor probes their numbers, they can really stand up to scrutiny.
In all of these conversations that I've been having across the team, the themes are really evident now that cash runway is really important, and that flexibility on valuation is something I've heard again and again. So there seems to be a lot of cross-sector themes coming through. So for the final question I want to ask you this morning, we're sort of turning our focus to the future and what's next. As we start to approach the new normal out there, what events are you looking forward to that are coming up for you, for your sector, or other things you're looking forward to in the coming months?
I think a few things. I mean, I think not an event so much, but I am missing the everyday discussions with colleagues. And actually also with that, kind of having the coffees with clients and so on. You can do so much on Zoom and Teams and everything else, but what we're all kind of missing is just like that knee-jerk inspiration of turning around, speaking to a colleague and saying, what do you think about this? Or hearing what someone else is saying and butting into the conversation, actually sharing some insights. So that sort of instantaneous, chat is the wrong word, but just kind of talk, discussion, bouncing ideas I miss, but hopefully with the office opening up soon, that will change and that will improve. I think also just the ability to more just meet with clients one-on-one and just kind of have that conversation. Again, Zoom and Teams work well, but I still think you get a bit more just out of seeing someone in the flesh, as it were, and just actually having that discussion. And lastly but not least, I'm looking to actually go to more events and go out more and actually hope the gym's open. Because right now I can't fit in half my clothes. So I definitely try and reduce some weight over the next few weeks and months.
That's a common issue for many of us, I think. Thank you so much, Chris, for your insights into your sector and sort of the wider story around COVID effect and impact investment. We're really happy that you took some time to share your thoughts with us. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much.
And thank you guys for coming and watching this latest video with Chris talking about his sector and what's happening now and what he's looking forward to in the future. More information about some of our upcoming events will be below the video. So thank you so much.
Thank you.